Matt Smith here, reporting for Sports Talk at the Stadium, presented by the South Carolina Beef Council in the wake of South Carolina's 56-20 victory over Charlotte at Williams-Brice Stadium. South Carolina, for those that were in attendance, more than 77,000 were here in a sellout crowd. A little slow out of the starting gate for South Carolina tonight. And you've got to give credit to Charlotte, Will Healy, their head coach, and a brilliant game plan. They had South Carolina stumbling just a bit, off balance in the first half, converting their first 7 third downs. So South Carolina fans, a little bit uneasy, a little bit antsy through 2 quarters. But in the third quarter, South Carolina made the necessary adjustments. They never abandoned the run game. And Marshawn Lloyd had a banner night, 169 yards on the ground, 224 yards combined between Christian Beal-Smith and Marshawn Lloyd. And Marshawn Lloyd had what is right now the play of the year for South Carolina in a highlight hurdle. You've got to see it to believe it, because Marshawn Lloyd's such a tremendous athlete, and South Carolina fans finally treated to that tonight here at Williams-Brice Stadium. But again, it wasn't easy. It turned out to be 56-20, but South Carolina unable to really crank it up in the first half, either offensively or defensively. Spencer Rattler was okay in the first half, but really South Carolina just couldn't get off the field. Again, Charlotte converting its first 7 third downs. South Carolina missing a golden opportunity at the outset of the game, driving right down the field, having second and goal at the 2, and then a poor play and a penalty resulted in just a chip shot field goal. Charlotte turns around after a penalty on their kick return, 89 yards down the field, and all of a sudden the 49ers are on top of the Gamecocks in what was supposed to be a get-right game, a guaranteed money game, and an SEC team was supposed to dominate. Well, that script did play out, but it didn't play out until the third quarter when South Carolina made its adjustments. Give Clayton White credit, because he was taking all sorts of criticism on Twitter, I'm sure on the message boards, and I'm sure in households across South Carolina and beyond, for the way his defense performed in the first half. But 3 third quarter interceptions turned the game on its head. Spencer Rattler was effective, completed 17 passes, 487 yards, didn't throw an interception, didn't throw a touchdown, but didn't need to, because South Carolina churned out almost 300 yards rushing and scored 5 touchdowns on the ground, 3 from Lloyd, 2 from Christian Beal-Smith. Juju McDowell got into the act as well and performed admirably. So South Carolina ran the football. Shane Beamer said in his post-game comments he had told offensive coordinator Marcus Satterfield earlier in the week 40 times, I want 40 rushes this week. And then he went back and almost softened that a little bit and said, you know what, Marcus Satterfield didn't need to hear that. He wants to run the football. We want to run the football, meaning as a program. And South Carolina just not able to do it effectively. Even against Georgia State. They could do it last year at the end of last season with Kevin Harris. And many remember that bowl game, the Duke's Mayo Bowl in Charlotte. South Carolina, 301 yards rushing. Hadn't duplicated anything like that until tonight. So it was a get-right second half for South Carolina. Now they'll look to make it 2 in a row when they host South Carolina State next week. So where does this leave everything? Where is South Carolina? Well, unfinished business. This evened their record at 2-2. But I don't know that it completely got the bad taste out of their mouth from the way they performed against Georgia. They're feeling good. Marshawn Lloyd, all smiles in the post game. Spencer Rattler said all the right things, that if we run the football like that, and I know that we can, then yeah, it makes my life easier, but a lot less on my plate, a lot less on my shoulders. South Carolina saying all the right things, but they have to build on this. Let's see if they do that. There's still concerns about this defense. The highly coveted players that they've got aren't generating a pass rush consistently. They did so in the third quarter, but not consistently through 4 games. And Charlotte, of course, not nearly to the level of the competition that South Carolina will face in the second half of its schedule, where they have some key games, some fulcrum games coming up: Kentucky, Missouri, Texas A&M. But before that, South Carolina State. South Carolina needs to get through that game healthy and needs to put some things on film to show those teams that I just talked about that they are balanced, that they are committed to the run. They were tonight. Can they back it up with another good performance? South Carolina has not won consecutive games since the beginning of last season when they went 2-0 in Shane Beamer's start with 2 home games. So South Carolina still has a lot to prove to a lot of people, including, I'm sure, themselves. That was a feel-good win, a feel-good second half for South Carolina. But it's only worth something if they build upon it. Stack another good performance against South Carolina State, Buddy Pugh's crew, when they come into Williams-Brice, make the short trip from Orangeburg next week, and then back into SEC play. And we'll be here to cover it all. Sports Talk all week long. Be sure to follow us, sportstalksc.com. Be sure to catch us weeknights. I'll be joining Chris Bergen tomorrow or Monday night on Sports Talk. We'll discuss this game and Clemson and Wake Forest and Coastal Carolina, Georgia State, and more. But to wrap it, South Carolina, they feel good about themselves right now. They need to do it again. They need to build upon this. That's the story from Williams-Brice Stadium. This is Sports Talk at the Stadium, presented by the South Carolina Beef Council.